2030.
Saudi Arabia, the Point of Investment Fund,
It's a
there's
big
a lot of
vision.
excitement
This
around
transformational
NEOM specifically.
change. Every aspect of the kingdom, economic, social, cultural, religious.
The 2030.
This is the 2030.
Yalla.
This is the 2030 episode 39. Hello, Dr. Hanaa. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Christmas season ramping up here in the United States, so everybody's super happy. Everything is great.
Very festive. Do you have a Christmas tree up?
I have 3 Christmas trees up, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, so my daughter has a December 20th birthday, which, kind of stinks for a kid and for their parents, because they're like, here are some gifts, and then you'll get more in 5 days. So it's kind of like its own thing, but we're going to have a huge party for Coco here. I think maybe with a Frozen theme for any Disney fans out there. She's super into it. So we went a little overboard with the decorating here. So yeah, it's like a winter wonderland around my house, which is great and is going to get old really fast. But yeah, and then we moved back to Saudi just after Christmas. So those
How
decorations are going to come down with lightning speed. Yep, very exciting. Kids are super excited.
Do they remember it?
Yeah, they remember it. They love it. And they keep asking about it. They know about 4 other countries in the world. Pierce said France the other day. And I was like, where'd you learn about France? But they really only know about Saudi Arabia. And there's this really cool, kind of place to take your kids called Kids Station. It's in Al Ulayah in Saudi Arabia. And it's just a massive kind of sports store sized, US sized, major kid playhouse thing. So they keep talking about that. We're going to have to make that part of the regular rotation for them. But they're excited. They're really stoked.
Just reminded me, when I moved to London, the only thing my kids wanted to do was go to this, they went to go to Rashid Mall, which was, again, indoor amusement parky. But that's what stays with kids, right? Where they have the most fun. So I love that.
Yes. Yeah. It's malls are they've never been to a mall that wasn't in Saudi Arabia. We are going to, we talked about it right before we started recording. We are going to Dubai for a few days. So I think they're going to like that.
The aquarium
not even my wife has
in
been,
Dubai Mall is amazing for kids, I think.
Yeah.
You don't even have to pay for it. You just don't go to the paid version, by the way. Sorry to whoever's listening to this.
Eating into the profits. There's a paid mall and then there's a free mall?
No,
I don't understand.
The aquarium.
Oh, the aquarium. Okay.
What's
the difference between the paid aquarium and the free one? Just number of fish, or?
Inside the paid one, there's more little tanks, but the big wall of fish is the thing that you want to go see, right?
Okay.
So
you're gonna need to help me plan some of this stuff out because I don't.
I've been a couple times
with
with the kids. I haven't really spent a lot of time in Dubai. It's not my place. It's not my. I don't enjoy going there, but it's just find it too busy. However, we've taken the kids a few times because, especially when I lived in Saudi, it was a quick place to go. Kidzania is awesome for little kids. If that's still open, I don't even know if it is, but my kids really like that. And I think they're old enough. Your kids are maybe a little bit young for it, but if they're not, then that's great. But I think they may have closed. Anyway, the aquarium just basically the fish tank there is amazing. The one in Dubai Mall is really cool. There's Legoland, which is really fun. And if you go there, you need to take swimsuits because there's a outdoor, I think it might even just be a Legoland water park, but so much fun. Just all the amusement parks are really good for kids as well. I don't know. That's what comes to mind off literally the top of my head. My children are quite a bit older than they were the last time I took them to these places, so I don't really remember, and some of these recommendations might be obsolete.
Yeah, so Legoland, we can't mention that in the house because we're not sure we're going to have time to go. It's kind of far away from the city, right? So it's I kind of don't want to, promise that necessarily and then take it away. Right. And so, but they're so into Legos right now. Everything is Legos and Magna-Tiles. So if I tell them that there's a dedicated Lego land, they're going to be we want to go there. And that's our red line. So I'm kind of leaving that out, but we may do it. And there is a hotel there. It's just you got to go way way down, like way past, right? So it's sort of like,
It's
you know.
kind of worth it. I mean, it depends on why you're going. But if you are going for the kids, and there was a Legoland outside of London in Windsor that we used to take our kids to all the time. It was just like the highlight of their life, right? So they don't care as much anymore. But when they were that age, they loved going to Legoland. And the one in Dubai, I believe, is a water park. I don't know if it's both an indoor or outdoor, true. But I think the whole thing is, which is really fun. So I'm just saying.
Okay, you're just saying, I'm glad they can't hear this because we may not do it. But anyway,
They're not
you need to send me more
into the
Rex,
2030.
We've got so many great comments from our episode last week on Jubail, the deep dive. This one's from Hassan KSU. I assume that means King Saud University. I lived in Jubail for a couple of years. I attended Jubail Industrial College for a year before I went to Kansas State University. So maybe KSU is Kansas State. One of the best infrastructure projects, from road to just how everything was put together. The city is small, but it is growing. Thank you, Hassan. Yes, it is still growing. Bechtel is still working there. Which really does amaze me 50 years on. So thank you for that comment. This one is from Hanaa on Instagram, using the username that I make fun of her for, not too posh. I was there last week in Jubail. Great infrastructure in Al Jubail Industrial City, and then 2 clapping emojis. Thank you, Hanaan. See you soon, Dr. Hanaan Adrees, good friend. Lots of comments on that. If you haven't seen it, just go to YouTube. We kind of do a deep dive on it. And I got some actually WhatsApp feedback from a friend, Hannah, about your comments about the educational system, and, basically saying that my children went there. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to kind of, ad lib a little bit, but my children went there and saying how good the schools were there. So it's really cool to hear a shout out. You don't hear a lot of people talking about that with Jubail. It's true. And actually, until you said it on the segment, I also didn't know that. So it is very good to know. So anyway, thanks to everybody for all of the feedback, comments, and everything, and emails, WhatsApps. We love hearing from you guys. It's really cool. In this episode, Dr. Hannah, we're going to be talking a little bit about, we're going to be having a Hannah-led deep dive on the Digital Services Index, where Riyadh ranks third amongst 93 cities worldwide. That is a huge accomplishment. So let's get into that deep dive, Dr. Hannah.
My deep dive today is on digital government and e-government. So a couple of episodes ago, we had a news segment that highlighted how Saudis jumped ahead in their World Bank's data index. And it really got me thinking there's quite a bit that Saudi is moving ahead in on World Bank rankings and UN rankings and just for different international organizations. So in September, actually, Saudi was ranked 4th globally in the UN Digital Services Index, and Riyadh was ranked 3rd among 193 cities worldwide. So I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive on kind of e-government in Saudi, because it's a really big thing and it's quite different. And actually being Saudi and also living in the UK and going to the US, I think Saudi's kind of leaps and bounds ahead in certain areas when it comes to e-government. So in that one UN Digital Services Index, the kingdom jumped 25 places in 2024, becoming one of the leading countries worldwide. It ranked 2nd amongst G20 countries in the index, and the kingdom also secured 7th position in the e-participation index, while Riyadh, as I mentioned, ranked 3rd amongst 193 cities worldwide. So you have an entity in Saudi called the Digital Government Authority, which recently released a report called Digital Transformation Strategies Across Saudi Arabia, which provides an overview of digital transformation efforts within Saudi's government as part of Vision 2030, and it highlights the goal to become one of the top 10 digital governments globally by 2030, and eventually one of the top 5. The report covers 8 government sectors, 31 digital strategies, 235 strategic objectives, 490 transformation initiatives, and 506 pain points starting from the year 2022. It's quite technical, so I wanted to create kind of a little bit of a highlight reel about what's in this report. According to the findings, a key area for development is around governance and efficiency. So as much as it's climbing in the rankings and doing really well, what this report does is highlight areas for improvement, from data management, security, operational and process excellence, infrastructure, as well as strategy and organization. Data management, security, and interoperability was also observed to be the primary pain point, which highlights challenges pertaining to robust data governance, cybersecurity, and seamless digital interoperability, underlining the critical importance of data integrity, integration, and security in the digital era. Another key area was more closely related to people. So both customer interaction and satisfaction, as well as workforce and upskilling, were identified as key pain points. And finally, ESG was identified as a pain point, but to a much lesser degree than the other ones. But it highlights the emerging importance of environmental sustainability and social responsibility considerations in digital transformation strategies. So the DGA report highlights the need to face digital vulnerabilities and enhance security through better organizational management and integrated decision making. But it also acknowledges that there's a critical need for skilled talent versed in digital technologies. Establishing a culture that fosters digital illiteracy and embraces digital changes is vital for the successful implementation of these digital strategies. It also tells us that data management and integration are the biggest challenges in digital transformation, making up 18.2% of the total. And international experiences like those in Singapore and Australia, for instance, highlight the importance of data governance. And in the analyzed entities for this report, improving quote, data management and governance, unquote, which accounts for 10.3% of the challenges, would enhance data security and exchange between the entities. So basically what they're saying is we need better skilled people and more communication between the different entities and a better management of the data overall. So it seems pretty straightforward, but it really does highlight how these pain points are kind of obvious in a certain way, but what it is that we can do to really improve that, or that they can do to improve it. I think, though, it's important now to kind of just take a step back and really think about the strength of digital government platforms in Saudi and how they make our lives a lot easier. The report acknowledges that the emergence of numerous applications, platforms, and services really impacts operational efficiency and excellence, as well as governance and strategic direction. I think some of the ones that we know are Abshir, Nafad, Nusuk, SPA has one, Al-Ula, Visit Saudi. There are so many more, but all of these are government platforms, and they all allow people to access government services much more streamlined than they did in the past. So a special event was held this week by the DGA to launch a new digital platform. His Excellency Ahmed Al-Soyan, the governor of the Digital Government Authority, stated that the platform code is fully aligned with both local and global digital standards. He emphasized that it represents a significant step forward in Saudi Arabia's digital transformation journey, promoting greater compliance and enabling the delivery of efficient, impactful services that support the nation's strategic digital objectives. So to me, this almost seems like the response to some of those pain points that were in that report, because the platform code is an open source design system that combines coding frameworks, design tools, and community guidelines. And it allows for the rapid creation of consistent user experiences. It provides designers and developers with ready-to-use assets to meet specific needs more efficiently and effectively. And it also, at this event, introduced the Saudi Digital Strategy, which is aimed at driving the growth of the digital economy and expanding opportunities for both public and private sector products. Other key initiatives that were announced were the Digital Transformation Ambassador Program, which fosters a connected digital community, and the SCENE program, which enhances user experiences both locally and globally through advanced frameworks and tools. So it's really created some open source tools that people can use to develop more platforms that can deliver these e-government services to more people. So if you are a government entity and your current application is a little bit bulky, it's not as agile, it needs to be, what this platform is doing is it's connecting you to developers as well as tools that are available for you to enhance the deliverability of the services that your platform provides. So I think it's a pretty cool thing. I mean, rankings aside, digital platforms in Saudi are amazing for the end user. I mentioned this in the beginning, and I can easily access government services personally online wherever I am. It really improves my day-to-day life. And especially considering how difficult it can be to renew your passport or pay a fine or access, some of your government documents like, I don't know, property deeds and things like that. All of it is in one place and you don't really have to go looking for it. Like if you even forget your ID at home, in Saudi, you can pull out your app and use that as an ID and it works just fine because it's created in a way where it is definitely authentic. It can be authenticated. So we've cut out a lot of the middlemen who can be inefficient maybe or unfamiliar with the procedures. And it really circumvents things like long lines, work interruptions, having to take time off to go do stuff. All of that is gone. So I haven't had any, like in any part of the world, I've never experienced anything as efficient as I have in Saudi when it comes to e-government. And so I was really happy to kind of delve a little bit deeper into that, think about the rankings and actually how that's playing out in day-to-day lives of Saudis. But also it was interesting that I'd read this report and that coincided with the announcement of the news about the new platform and the open source material that they're providing to other entities.
One thing that Saudi Arabia has going for it, I mean, kind of alluded to it just now, but you have a government that's really working together. There's sort of a clear mandate for them to get things done and then for them to work together as necessary to achieve goals that go above any one department, any one ministry. In the US, oftentimes, things are very siloed between departments, cabinets, and so you're not going to have this sort of like cross cabinet embrace of digital technologies, at least in lockstep with each other. Second is you sort of have a country that is younger, right? So you have a more tech savvy country on average compared to other countries, and they are unbelievably well connected. 99% internet penetration in Saudi Arabia. I've seen 100% as well. People that are young with smartphones that are really appreciating these sort of prioritized services. Things like that you mentioned, Absher. For COVID-19, tracking people where they've been was enormously helpful for Saudi Arabia when they were able to sort of, detect, hey, we have a COVID outbreak here. Who is there? It's all on the phone. You can let people know very quickly. It's just really cool. I mean, and there's a lot in this report. So it was nice to kind of get the rundown. 506 pain points. That sounds like very familiar. It sounds like me working in my garden for about an hour. But I mean, that's it for them to do this, to highlight everything as they have and then say, hey, this is how we can get better. This is what we're doing now. And then to make everything open source so that you can have innovation in this space. That's part of the problem with digital transformation is you really need innovation to drive it. If you don't have an ecosystem where innovation is critical, then you're not gonna have effective digital transformation. So second in the G20 sounds about right to me. And so things like this eventually help Saudi Arabia change the image of itself in other people's eyes for things like tourism when they come visit. Really interesting report. I also know that there is a lot out there on digital transformation in Saudi Arabia. So as I kind of just mentioned, it's an ecosystem that a lot of people are plugging into for business opportunities to grow their products to be integrated with government and government services. Just the kind of thing, it may not get like attention necessarily on this show, that it's really good to highlight. So well done, Dr. Hanaa.
I think the reason I really wanted to do it was I think it's important for people to know actually how easy our day-to-day lives are here. People often do think about Saudi Arabia and they think about hardship for a lot of people, and I actually think that for everybody that has a phone, which almost everybody I think has at least one, if not three in the country, and people have access to devices. And as you said, it's not just the devices, it's also the internet connectivity. And this is across socioeconomic statuses and citizenship. Everybody here has access to some mobile technology. And so once you have that, your life is a lot easier and you don't have to stand in line at the DMV all day. So I think that, there's something to be said for that.
For sure. I was super interested in when living there with my family in the winter and spring of this year. It was really interesting to kind of like watch my wife, Sophie, kind of like get around and kind of get her feedback on like how life is for a mother of then two children to be living in Riyadh. And she kind of was amazed by, how digital, how seamless a lot of things were. It was then that she started using her phone to pay for things. Here, we still use credit cards. And I mean, you have the tap to pay thing everywhere, but I mean, for some reason, I just still use the actual card. And it was just kind of cool to see it in real life. She's like, oh, do you want to go to Riyadh season? Let's book it. It's online. Like your tickets are here. It's just little things like that that kind of add up and make an experience living or visiting a city in Saudi Arabia, worth it and cool and fun. I mean, and so much is automated. I mean, it's really amazing. When you get a speeding ticket, which is not Absher, it's Sahur. Sahur is like the speed camera situation. They just text you the ticket and ding your bank account, and that's it. And they give you a picture of it, which
you get a picture of yourself violating the law. Yeah. You know what Sahur means, right? Does anybody ever tell you what the
I
word?
don't.
So all of these apps actually usually mean something as well. And they're great. Like somebody came up with the formula and because they all kind of rhyme. So it's great. But Sahur is the person that stays up all night watching you. Well, not watching you, but that's what the message is. Like Sahur is somebody that stays up late. So it's up, it's watching you. Don't speed. Speeding kills.
Speaking of staying up late, a lot of people are driving around Saudi Arabia at night. I mean, like super late, 12, 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like there is traffic at that time. And it's always just kind of like something you notice because the speed cameras in Saudi Arabia are like really, really good. At the photo you get, I'm like, I have the one that I have of me. I was using the phone. I probably told you this, but I was like talking on the phone, merging in, and they were like, oh, you're on the phone. And I was like, oh, wow, you can detect that? That's amazing. But yeah, I mean, like, so the technology, I mean, it's all part of this wholesale approach to embracing technology for a kingdom that until the vision was launched really wasn't doing this strategically like at all. And so it's kind of cool. We're like witnessing the subject of the show, this transformation in real time. This is a big part of it. So great deep dive. Love it.
Thank you. So let's get to the news.
Let's get to the news.
Did you know about all of the sustainability stuff that's happening in Saudi?
So I am aware that there's an uptick in sustainability, like news stuff. It seems like a lot is going on right now. Go on.
Well, this week, Riyadh is closing the 16th Convention to Combat Desertification, or the COP 16 for UNCCD. It's been hosting it since December 3rd. And there are lots of different COPs. I think people always think about the climate one, but there's also land and I think ocean. But Saudi is hosting the one that's on land, or desertification and droughts, this week, or has been. The event was sponsored by many different Saudi entities. You had STC, Aqua Power, the Saudi Fund for Development, Roshan, Ma'aden, and more. So these entities were sponsoring this event and Saudi's hosting of it. And what actually that translates into is a lot of money and pledges to combat desertification and drought. So over $12 billion were pledged to support this. And this is an area that tends to be underfunded. The conference really is a convening space for global players in, the world that are interested in combating drought and desertification and ensuring land restoration and soil fertility and so on. So it's a place where the global community is coming together to talk about how we can combat this, what the dangers are. And, again, it is right in line with what Saudi Arabia is doing right now with the Saudi Green Initiative, which is a pledge to plant 10 billion trees in Saudi Arabia. And then the wider Middle East Green Initiative, which is very similar. It's bringing a lot of these different issues to the fore, where we talk about why it's important to create more fertile soil. That, of course, creates microclimates where you get more rainfall, which leads to better groundwater retention and less erratic weather patterns. So I think it's pretty cool that Saudi Arabia is this convening space, and there have been so many events happening in parallel. And actually throughout the event, I think there's a blue zone and a green zone. I may have made those colors up, but there's two zones. One where there's these official delegations really talking about the developments in this space and the research, and then more civil society entities and private sector events where they're really talking about what they are doing in this space for sustainability advancement, and specifically talking about land and soil.
Yeah, So Saudi Arabia is obviously a desert. Like a lot of it is desert, not all of it, but a lot of it is desert. So it's interesting that this would be the location for the desertification convening conference, because most desertification, which is not an easy word to say, most desertification is happening in Africa and South America and some in Asia as well. Saudi Arabia is already a desert, but it is working to combat desertification and actually reverse desertification, which is also kind of fun to say. And so it's really cool to see Saudi Arabia as the convener location for this. Obviously, Saudi Arabia is doing its reverse desertification in the form of the Saudi Green Initiative, planting 10 billion trees. And that is not just with land. This December also marked the launch of the National Red Sea Sustainability Strategy to promote the blue economy and environmental conservation. It should be conservation.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with you. I think it should be conservation.
Conservatism to me is a political bent.
It's a different thing.
Anyway, so yeah, that could be the UK-US kind of thing.
Possibly,
how like some different. Yeah. Anyway, who knows? But just really cool to see them sort of taking the charge here. It does fit into the theme of Saudi Arabia as global events convener, which is definitely a theme of this podcast. We're seeing a lot of it now, especially in Riyadh. So it's good to see. And yeah, and as I mentioned on a previous show, Saudi Arabia is planting tons and tons of Mandalorian trees on the coast. Of course, it is actually mangrove. Yeah, I know, right. But I just can't believe I made that mistake earlier. Too much Star Wars. But just good to see this, and good to see Saudi Arabia leading it. I mean, desertification, a problem that happened in the United States in the 1920s and 30s really badly, to the point where dust clouds were engulfing Washington, D.C. that emerged in the West from over farming and people taking advantage of the Homestead Act, et cetera. Famous, and we believe we talked about it on a previous show, Ken Burns' documentary, The Dust Bowl, must see, really cool on this subject.
Yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of interesting work done on regenerative farming as well, which really is looking at how you can I think the idea of it is to find land that has been depleted of its kind of fertility, and then thinking of ways to really just kind of revive it in an interesting way. There's a really cool documentary that I saw on El Bela, which is over in Southwest Saudi, so near Mecca, actually, looking at how they were able to utilize kind of traditional forms of farming to bring the desert to life. It's a phenomenal documentary. And actually the architect and I want to say the scientist that was leading this had done it already in China. And so it was a very, very cool project. And I think that this idea that, once it's done, that's it, is something we really need to overcome, because I think there's just when you have traditional methods, you can really kind of look at how people understood water patterns. When it rained, they understood where you should grow things, where you shouldn't. And all of that really translates into a better management and a better relationship between humans and the environment that they're living in. And that will combat that drought and create more soil resilience, which is so important. So yeah, I think there's a lot going on. You know who else was there other than all of the UN officials that were talking about drought and desertification in Riyadh this week?
Will Smith.
Yeah.
Spike Lee.
Those guys, which is pretty cool. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But also President Macron, the French president, was in Saudi Arabia, right? And he also was talking sustainability with Saudi, wasn't he?
Lots of deals signed this week between French companies, especially I think it's EDF is their sort of energy company, and Saudi partners for Total. I think Total may be the one I'm thinking of, and Saudi partners, especially in the solar space. That was a pretty good visit, right? He went to Al Ula. He seemed to have a good time. Yeah.
And aviation. I think they were looking at green aviation and kind of I think they were looking at ways to produce better fuel for the aviation sector.
Yeah, and then Macron just went right back on his presidential private jet.
Of course he did.
Major super polluter. Who wouldn't do that?
Yeah,
Of course, your boy is there in Saudi Arabia right now, right? The new UK PM. Is he not in Saudi Arabia right now?
Is Keir there as we speak?
Keir,
I don't really follow his travel schedule.
You don't get a travel alert for him? Okay, that's cool.
I don't. But yeah, Keir Starmer, I know, was going to go, because I did see something in the headlines talking about You're about to go to Saudi. It didn't make headlines the way the Qatari state visit made headlines here. Like
No, of
they
course not,
came, right? And like the British press was just eating it up. They're like, look at the beautiful second wife of the Qatari emir coming with him. And Prince William and Kate received them. There was it was a really interesting way that they covered that visit. Anyway, I obviously have gone off on a complete tangent.
Going off a little bit. We've talked about The Guardian, which I like love to hate to love, but they never hold any punches back, do they? It's interesting too. In Saudi Arabia last year, parts of Saudi Arabia got 700% of the historical average of rain in the winter rainy season. And that kind of went viral, right? Because it transformed several areas that were typically barren and dry landscapes into sort of like super bloom flower farms that were everywhere, that were super cool to see. It does seem anecdotally, and this is not a scientific statement, that Saudi Arabia is getting more and more rain these days. You can't say that based on 1 year, but it's just interesting. And yeah, climate change is, giving and taking, as it were. So it's a very important topic, and a very important topic for Saudi Arabia. And I'm sure as you grew up, Hanaa, in Saudi Arabia, right? I mean, like, there was already ongoing desertification efforts. There was already awareness of this. Yeah.
There was. It was something that we talked about quite a bit. There was, campaigns against desertification and so on. It was definitely something that's been on the radar for a long time. And when we talked about the environment, a lot of times we talked about either recycling or desertification. But can I just say that one of the things, the misperceptions that I had to combat most of my life had to do with the fact that, I live in a desert, therefore there must never be any rain. It must be super dry. And when I would tell people, actually, it does rain. And when it rains, it's like beautiful thunderstorms, because I kind of really like thunderstorms. I think that lightning is beautiful, and it's one of my favorite things to watch. And we used to have a room, and I think I've mentioned this before, we used to have this room in our house that was all glass, and we just sit and watch lightning. So when there were storms, they were big. But what would happen the next day, okay, you might have some flooding in the streets, which was not good. But the other thing was the desert, which was sandy, brown, would turn green. And you would just get this beautiful cover of life, the green life that was just waiting for a little bit of rain to come back to bloom. And it was just always my favorite part after the rain, is watching the desert turn green. It's
cool. I love that you had an all glass thunderstorm room growing up. That's pretty cool.
It was really cool, actually.
It's really cool. I love thunderstorms too. Moving on, news in the tech space, kind of, in Saudi Arabia. Apple today announced plans to expand in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The new Apple Store, there's actually a slew of Apple stores coming. The first one, the new Apple Store, will launch digitally. It'll be a digital Apple Store specifically for the Kingdom, online in summer 2025. What took them so long? I have no idea. And I still have no idea, because it's 2025 and there's no Apple Store in Saudi Arabia yet. Anyway, online only, first launch of Apple Store 2025. The online store will bring customers across Saudi Arabia new ways to shop Apple's full range of products with its world-renowned exceptional customer service support directly from Apple in Arabic, Dr. Hanaa, for the first time. That's pretty cool. The first brick and mortar store is planned for 2026, and I think this is the best part of the announcement. This brick and mortar expansion into Saudi Arabia will be in Riyadh, they promise an iconic retail store coming. I mean, Apple stores are amazing anywhere you go, but I think the combo of glass and Riyadh red brick is going to be something to be seen. Better late than never for Apple, but it has been building to this point. In 2021, Apple launched the region's first developer academy, the Apple Developer Academy in Riyadh, in partnership with the government, Tuwaiq Academy, and Princess Noura bint Abdul Rahman University. And that was an all-woman Apple Developer Academy, and it was located at the university. And it did offer really, world-class training in Apple stuff for coders, designers, entrepreneurs, preparing them for careers in the app economy. And that has produced 2,000 students who completed the programming courses through the academy. Now they're publishing their apps to the App Store, both domestically in Saudi Arabia and for global audiences. And man, I just have to say, when I made the switch to Apple, all Apple products in 2010, it's like I like remember it like as a day that was like seminal in my life, and for both work and personal use, one of the best decisions I've ever made. But it totally sucked when you'd go to Saudi Arabia and your charger broke, or you forgot your charger, which definitely happened like at least twice for me. I don't know why, I forget things like that, but like you got to have it. So I would have to usually go to like a third party store. I know Jareer has them now, and you can go to Jareer, and Jareer is actually amazing in Saudi Arabia, but I didn't know about Jareer. So I would go to these like third party stores with like un-Apple like logo that wasn't officially branded, and you know they would have the Apple stuff, but they'd have to they'd have to basically import it in to sell at a considerable markup, of course, and you just didn't get the same level of service. But anyway, so this is huge for Apple. For anybody that has an iPhone or a Mac, definitely huge. Any problem you have with your Mac, you take it to the Apple store, they will fix it. You make an appointment. It's a really good customer service experience. It's really Saudi in that way. I don't know why it took them so long. Anyway, welcome Apple to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This is exciting. I'm excited, and I'm going to be spending some time in that Diriyah store and leaving much poorer than I am now.
Yeah, it is very exciting. Actually, Tim Cook apparently just visited the region for the first time earlier this year, and then he was in Riyadh at the academy. I saw a really cool photo, a selfie of him with a bunch of women that are training at the academy. So it was nice to see that, and really just kind of encompasses this excitement about opening the new flagship Apple store in Riyadh. I agree with you. Who knows why it's taken so long, but it's exciting that it's happening now, even if I am a Samsung user for other reasons.
Maybe this is what it's going to take to get you to get that green bubble.
Yeah.
It's like a scarlet letter. Whenever you text a big group chain, it's like, oh, it's Hanaa with their Samsung. How dare she?
How dare I? I'm very happy with my dual SIM Samsung that I've had for a long time. It took me a while to learn how to use an Android. And so I'm over that learning curve, and I'm happy where I landed. I think there are a lot of benefits to having an Android, and I still know how to use an Apple. We have Apple devices in our home, iPads. I was an early adopter of the iPod. My kids think that's funny. I still say iPod sometimes when I'm talking about iPads, and that makes them think that, or when I'm talking about earpods or whatever they're called. Such a mom.
AirPods. I mean, that's like 8-track now to us. You know, there's like somebody being like, "What, an 8-track tape player?" I'm like,
MP3s.
MP3 is still a format that is pretty widely used, but yeah, I mean that's.
But you're not carrying your MP3 player around; it's now in your phone, right?
Right. How good, and thank you, Spotify, how good was the iPod, though, when it came out? You were like, whoa, I don't have to carry this Discman around with discs and switch the discs out. It's just all here, and it sounds
Or your
awesome.
Walkman with your cassette tapes, or am I really aging myself?
Actually, really close to here, I have kind of a lot of those dinosaur, tech things, and I'm like, wow, handheld cameras. It's like, you don't need this anymore.
Those are coming back. I just read a thing on NPR that said that Gen Zers are really excited about little digital cameras that were popular in the 2000s. And there's a guide to buying them for your teens. It's really funny.
Okay. Full circle. Yeah. Love it. I should mention, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's why, before I go on, why do they want to do that? Why aren't they using
apparently they're fun, but also they give a different image than the digital cameras on your phone. So they're not as they don't have as high pixels. However, the aperture stays open longer, so you get a different type of photo. The colors look different. They're crisper, apparently, according to this NPR. I don't know. Read it. It was front page on my NPR app.
Are you going to send me a link that I can read?
I'll send you
awesome.
a link.
I definitely want to read this. But before we just wrap this segment up, Apple has spent 10 billion riyals with companies across the country in recent years. And they just also rolled out Apple Pay for the Metro that just launched. Joining the Riyadh Metro now joins a list of over 250 cities where you can use Apple Pay to get on those beautiful train cars. And I'm now getting videos and photos from people being like, I'm on the Riyadh Metro. So
looking forward to riding it.
Looking forward to riding it around. Yeah.
I'm going to be in Riyadh on the 15th of December, inshallah. So looking forward to taking a ride. I hope I have time. Actually, I think I'm going to clear my schedule and just ride the Metro around for a day and see how that
highlight
feels.
The whole schedule and be like Riyadh Metro ride. I want to see
exactly.
it. I want to see it all. There are some views that people are sharing from the Metro. This is something we talked about in our segment on the Metro, but you will have some insane views of Riyadh when you're riding in that Metro, especially when you're driving by or driving, I guess you'd say, in a train. You're going by Kaft because it's a little bit elevated.
Yeah.
It kind of comes by that Zaha Hadid building, and then you go into downtown, and that sort of downtown view apparently is dope.
They were saying
we
it
always
feels
get off
almost like a
topic,
slow
you know?
roller coaster in that part of it because it's
Okay.
just a fun.
Well, we're
yeah,
going to wait for our first-hand review from Dr. Hanaa Al-Moabed
on
from the
metro.
Eastern Province in the big city, riding the metro around. I can't wait for it.
I leave my province and go to the capital.
Can you believe it? There are trains here. It's unbelievable.
So I haven't seen you. I didn't see your photo on the Red Sea Film Festival red carpet.
So it's a really great question. I was at Art Basel in Miami.
Oh.
You probably never heard of it. When
I
you get
have.
sort of these high-level invites between
You have to
two
choose
places, and I'm going back to. So I was in Art Basel. That's okay. But thanks for noticing that I wasn't there. Many
Yeah.
people noticed, I think. Yeah.
I did notice that you weren't there as the Red Sea Film Festival returns for its 4th edition, 2024, in a new purpose-built venue in El Beled in the heart of Jeddah, which is very exciting.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the theme this year is New Home of Film. As the 4th edition of the Red Sea International Film Festival launches between the 5th and the 12th. It launched with the premiere of Karim Shinawi's Egyptian drama, The Tale of Lay's Family. So the theme of this season, this edition of the Red Sea Film Festival speaks directly to the festival's move to this venue in El Beled. I don't know if you've been to El Beled, but it is an incredible old town that's been restored in the heart of Jeddah, where there's lots of
UNESCO.
traditional homes.
I have been there. It's amazing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
a UNESCO heritage site. It's a beautiful venue. And this year they have a market, the Red Sea Souk, which is a 10-minute walk from the cultural square in a large pop-up in front of the old town. Lots of international film stars were in Jeddah for the event. You had A-listers including Will Smith, Eva Longoria, Emily Blunt. Vin Diesel actually received the festival's Iconic Characters Award. And he took the stage after a warm introduction by his longtime collaborator, Michelle Rodriguez, who said the two have been creatively in rooms defending storytelling, people with our colored skin, and the beauty of the streets, and the people who don't necessarily live by the rules of others. So Vin Diesel was talking about how there were more familiar faces and a warmer place within the community that was there in Jeddah than awards shows in America, according to him. Oscar-winning filmmaker Spike Lee also is going to be there as a judge. So it's pretty cool. It's a beautiful space to watch because everybody's dressed to the nines in all sorts of designer clothes, beautiful gowns, and I'm sure the films are also really great too. I like the red carpet.
Yeah. Vinny Diesel flex. That's really cool. I didn't know that he was in Saudi Arabia. Too Fast, Too Furious. That's amazing. Emily Blunt, Michelle Rodriguez, both not terrible to look at. So very cool. Yeah, I mean, this thing just keeps growing and growing every year, right? It's getting bigger, and that really reflects Saudi Arabia's ambitions in film, not just to make films for Saudis to make films, but also for international studios to come in and shoot films in Saudi Arabia. There's a $100 million fund that has been set up for this purpose. I imagine that reps were there for that. So very cool. Chairwoman of the Red Sea Film Foundation, Jomana Al-Rashid. Yes? Spoke about the long history of Al-Balad. Al-Rashid. See, thanks. That's why I got to check. She spoke about the long history of Al-Balad, saying she and her team felt inspired by the heritage and humbled by the history. Yeah, just really cool. The chairwoman went on to emphasize a historic year for the foundation, which included an Oscar nomination for Kauthar Ben Hania's Four Daughters and the first ever Saudi film to play at Cannes, Nora. Traction for Saudi film, the more they invest and demonstrate interest and build ties with Hollywood, with Endeavor, with these huge companies that are in Hollywood that are looking to expand globally, obviously cinemas in Saudi Arabia are red hot and blowing up. So just good traction for this, and looked like a star-studded event despite me choosing Art Basel over the Red Sea Film Festival. But I do want to go one year, maybe next year should be the year. But I'll be on that red carpet list, don't worry.
Yeah, that's the place to be. It's a very cool event. In addition to the films that they're screening, there's all sorts of fireside chats with different stars. Sarah Jessica Parker, Benedict Cumberbatch. And then there's also an academy, which is pretty cool as well. So they have these other kind of events that happen year long where they're training people on a lot of the support network that you need to create film, the skills that you need. You can see the films, you can watch the stars talking about the different things and go to workshops. And it's just a really buzzing place. I have not been, but I do know people that have been involved, and it's just really exciting to talk to them about it and think about the very cool things that they're doing throughout the year as well for upskilling young, kind of budding and aspiring filmmakers.
So have you been to a film festival before, like anywhere? I haven't. And when you're reading this, I was like, wait, I've never been to a film festival, like ever.
No, I haven't been to one ever myself. I'm not in that. I guess I would have gone to a film festival if I was part of a film that was being made or something like that. But it's not something that I've done before. I did actually participate and collaborate on making a film last year, but that's not yet out. So maybe next year I'll go to a film festival.
And of course, you were in a documentary series about Dr. Hanaa.
That's not a film. It's not a film. This is an
it's a piece of art
episode.
is what it is.
Let's not talk. We don't talk about that. That is an episode in a series. This is one episode,
Okay,
whatever.
but you got your foot in the water on that, and that's good. No, I think next year,
No, the
2025,
film,
going to be a big year for the 2030. I think we need to do a live thing at either Cannes or probably the Red Sea. Be a little bit more on brand, but yeah, cool.
Yeah,
but
it'd be cool to go talk to some of
users to
these stars.
Yeah, don't check out Hannah's documentary on YouTube. It doesn't exist. But yeah, very cool. And this thing keeps growing each year. And I wonder who stayed, because Will Smith was there in Saudi Arabia earlier, right? So he's made a lot of trips to Saudi. What's going on with that?
He's back and forth quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, rounding out news, Dr. Hanaa, probably the biggest we're going to have on the show in a while. It is official. The World Cup is coming to Saudi Arabia in 2034. Mabruk to half plus of you and to your family, to every all the Saudis listening, because this is absolutely monumentous. Of course, we know that it was announced about a year ago, big fanfare, but it's taken a while for FIFA Congress to hold their virtual meeting to confirm it. FIFA will confirm the hosts of the 2030 and 2034 World Cups today, and this is in a joint bid. For 2030 will be a joint bid led by Morocco, Spain, and Portugal. And then 2034 is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, about 10 years after FIFA, maybe a little bit more, 12 years after FIFA World Cup in Qatar. So really big news. Yeah, it's been quite a journey for Saudi Arabia to get here. For 2034, FIFA invoked its principle of continental rotation. So there was a journey that was announced, it was celebrated, and then we have this sort of waiting period. But there's been a lot that has gone into play here. For 2034, FIFA said, hey, we need to rotate continents where this is. So they were only accepting bids from Asia and Oceania. For the 2026 World Cup, the first involving 48 teams, will take place across North America. I will be going to several games, none of which will be in Washington, D.C., because the stadium is trash, and that's to be expected. Australia and Indonesia were interested in competing against Saudi Arabia, but there was a tight 1-month window to submit a bid. Of course, this drew some controversy. Winners are winners. They dropped out. That left Saudi Arabia in sole contention, and the bid was confirmed Wednesday, rounding out a long journey, and I believe some heavy celebrations going on across the kingdom. And it's a crowning achievement. It's a huge international event, one of the biggest there is, and Saudi Arabia has been developing global interest in sports to come to Saudi Arabia, developing its own sports ecosystem as well. We do have the logistical challenges now to tackle, just tiny ones. Of course, there are only 2 stadiums now in Saudi Arabia that can accommodate a World Cup. They're working on that. Anybody who's listened to this show knows that. 14 are required in total. They'll get there. And the other sort of challenge, which Qatar solved, was that it's a little warm in the summer, you could say. Not really great for football. Even at night, we're talking about temperatures above 100 or 30 Fahrenheit, Celsius, respectively. So you may see it, just like Qatar did, adjusted later in the year. But of course, that year, Ramadan will take place in December. So you're going to have some juggling to do. I have no doubt that they will do said juggling. Congrats to our friends in Saudi Arabia, to my co-host, and everybody gearing up for this. So exciting. Of course, the metro is firing, as you mentioned earlier, so that'll help. But just huge for Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, Jeddah, Dammam, etc. Very cool.
It is very exciting, and everybody is definitely very stoked for it. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to do, but I think the plan is in place and it's quite elaborate, and they've been very public about what the plan is and where the stadiums are going to be and the capacity. But I think what's really exciting about the World Cup is just the infrastructure that supports it. So all of the tourism around it, all of the food and beverage and hospitality around it, all of the just cultural exchange that happens in the different stadiums, pavilions. It's just an exciting thing to have happen in a country that for the longest time, I wanted my friends to come and visit me and I couldn't host them. So the fact that the whole world is welcome now, obviously it's hard to get tickets, etc. But if you can make it and get the tickets, then you're welcome to come to Saudi. And that's exciting for me. I'm really pleased that this is happening.
Yeah, it should also be noted that Saudi Arabia had the highest ever bidding score of any country to host the World Cup, scoring a 419.8 out of 500. That is a record, remarkable achievement from organizers to get everything ready for the acceptance of this official bid. It didn't come without any, the standard human rights criticisms and other things that are always going to come with stuff like this. With any sporting event, it's the same thing over. And it doesn't mean those are illegitimate or not serious concerns, but this bid is successful and it's going to be so cool. I can only hope that my feckless, disorganized American team manages to secure a bid this time around. Usually America is a layup for any sporting event, and for soccer, football, I should say, just we're not very good, even though every kid plays soccer growing up. So I don't know what it is, but yeah. So let's get it together, whoever the coach is now, because we're going to need it. I want to see the Yankees playing there big time.
I'm really excited, actually, because you were mentioning how the next World Cup is going to be in the U.S. and there will be games in Seattle. And I'm hoping that we will be able to go to some of those as well. So having the World Cup be in kind of the 2 places that I'm from is really exciting.
That's so cool. I didn't really think about that. Yeah, so Seattle's one of the cities, it's like Los Angeles, and then Philadelphia will be the closest to my farm here, which is doable. I'm so excited about that. Of course, we just talked about this, but Hervé Renard is back. Hervé. I always mess that up. Hervé is back coaching the Saudi team. So hopefully the Saudis are coming
Inshallah.
here. Any Saudi that comes for the World Cup to see their team play, welcome to come over to the farm and hang out, sit by the fire, whatever you want to do. But yeah, it should be really cool. And look, this is a big achievement for Vision 2030. You don't have this without Vision 2030. There's just no question. Dr. Hanaa, that wraps it up. Thank you so much.
No, I have a shout out.
Go right ahead.
Okay, I have a shout out to Lema El Badin. I think, again, I looked this up in English. But anyway, 8-year-old from Dammam who created glasses for visually impaired people. She participated in a competition that was organized by the International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness. And participants had to demonstrate new concepts of glasses that could help improve eye health and access to technology for people with visual impairments. Her project was called Vision Friend, and apparently it had a bunch of sensors built into the glasses so people who were visually impaired wouldn't bump into things. It would vibrate or even make a sound, I think. The goggles, even cooler, were made out of eco-friendly materials like bamboo and recycled plastic. So yes, 8-year-old inventor Lema from Dammam, congratulations.
That is astounding. Congratulations, Lema. That's a huge achievement. Really cool. 9. That's
8.
Man. 8. Wow. That's amazing. That's truly astounding. Congratulations. Quick shout out. KAUST just got ranked number 1 Times Higher Education Arab University rankings. KAUST is something that we've talked about on the show that you and I both know fairly well, Dr. Hanaa. So a huge milestone for everybody at KAUST from the president on down. It's an amazing place. If you haven't been there yet, it's like, I just had a friend asking me about it. It's Stanford or Berkeley on the coast on the Red Sea coast in Saudi Arabia. And it's a really amazing place. One of the best research universities in the world, but tops in the Times Higher Education Arab University rankings this year. Source of national pride for many Saudis. Just congratulations to everybody involved. Reem Philby is a good friend there. Just really cool. So congrats to y'all for that accomplishment. Look at that.
Congratulations.
Putting together a shout out on the fly.
Well
just
done.
like that. Thank you so much. Dr. Hanaa, see you next time.
See you.